Hey guys, today I want to talk about the names I've given some of my bikes. I find this topic really interesting, and if you don't mind, if you would share in the comments names that you've given your bikes and how you came up with those names, I'd appreciate it. So let's get into it. I call this bike Jabba the Hut. It's a 29er RIP E9 e-bike. The bike has an alloy frame, a 620 watt-hour battery, a Bosch motor. It's a 29er. So the bike is a big bike and it has a lot of heavy components. I really like the bike, and the name is given to the bike, in a loving manner, let me say that. But I did realize when I got the bike and started moving it around from bike stand to bike stand, putting it on bike racks, things like that, I noticed the bike was heavier than what I was used to. And, being gray has its primary color, but having some sort of interesting colors on it. After a while, it kind of reminded me of the scene in Star Wars where you see Jabba the Hut, and it's kind of a dark, gray kind of scene, and he's there, and he's obviously a very heavy guy. Anyway, all that reminded me of a little bit with this bike, and that's how it got its name, Jabba the Hut. This bike is a bike that I call Joe Cocker. And the way this bike got its name, I was out riding it shortly after I got it. And when I first got the bike, there weren't very many e-bikes out on trails. And when I pulled up with some other riders, one of the guys asked me, about the bike. And I told him that I was out riding with a little help from my friends, meaning that I was riding an e-bike that had a motor that was helping me ride it. We had a good chuckle out of that, and we talked about e-bikes and everything. And after that, I thought about it, and the performance of that song, with a little help from my friends, that I enjoy the most is performed by Joe Cocker. So this bike from then on became Joe Cocker. Now, this is a 2016-17 Cannondale trigger, and I call this bike the Crusader. When I first got the bike and looked at it some, it's primarily a white and black bike, but it does have some red accents. And the most distinctive feature to me on this bike is it has a seat that's a white seat, but it has a red stripe down it, and it has a red T on it. And after I had ridden the bike a while and looked at it some, it dawned on me what it reminded me of, and that is I've seen pictures of the medieval Crusaders and their armor, and a lot of times they have painted on or are wearing garments that have white as the background, but then have a red cross on the garment or on their shield or some part of their armament. And that's what this red reminded me of. Red with the white background reminds me of that. So this bike became known to me as the Crusader. This is an Intense Tazer, and I call this bike Lindsay Lohan. Now, the reason for that is at the time I got this bike, I was watching a series called Lindsay, which I think Oprah Winfrey produced. I really enjoyed the series, but anyway, when I first got this bike and started riding it, I was super impressed with the bike, and still am. I really like this bike. It was the first time I'd had a bike or ridden a bike that was a mullet setup, and I just liked the way I sat down in the bike. And when I rode the bike and when it was performing well, it really performed well. But, and there's a big but, the first 10 times or so that I went to ride the bike, probably half of those times, 5 of them or so, I had some major problem. I got a flat tire, or the battery terminals corroded and I had to clean them. It was just hit or miss. I mean, sometimes I would go and I'd have a fantastic time, best ever, and then the next time I'd go, I'd have the worst time. So, as I got sort of, living through that drama of trying to get the bike to work out, it dawned on me that Lindsay Lohan kind of has had the same kind of deal. Sometimes you see her and she's unbelievable. I mean, she just looks great. She, great in terms of her acting ability. But she certainly has had some personal issues that have pulled her in the other direction. And there have been times when she's, not only looked pretty bad, but had a pretty rough go just as a human being. So it sort of dawned on me one day that the bike is a little bit like Lindsay Lohan. From day to day, you're not sure exactly what you're going to get. But when it's a good day, it can't be much better. But when it's a bad day, it can't be much worse. So this bike became known to me as Lindsay Lohan. This is a early Cannondale Jackal. And I call this bike the Jackal. It's a good example of where the manufacturer, in my opinion, picked the correct name for the bike, and I don't think I can improve on it. When I think of Jackal, I think of Jekyll and Hyde, and Jekyll and Hyde to me is someone who has sort of a very different personalities that come out in different situations. And in this bike, which I really enjoy riding, when I'm out riding it in sort of an XC trail situation, the bike feels one way, but then when things get a little bit rough, rooty, rocky, steep, the bike feels completely different. And it's a lot of fun to ride in those steep, rocky, rooty situations, and hence the name Jackal. Now, this is a bike that I call Aliana, as in Aliana Lohan. This is a Intense Tazer also. This bike is almost identical to the yellow Intense Tazer I have. Why I bought this bike, I have no idea. I had no need for the bike. I ran up on a good deal somewhere and just couldn't pass it up and bought the bike. But unlike Lindsay Lohan, this bike performs at an incredibly high level, and I've not had all of the drama with the bike. I mean, I don't think I've been riding it yet when it's broken down. So very dependable, very reliable, and performs really well. But it looks, in terms of the profile, it looks very similar to Lindsay Lohan, my yellow Tazer, but this bike is gray. And Lindsay has a sister named Aliana, and Aliana looks very similar to Lindsay, but she has black hair. And I'm not exactly sure what color Lindsay's hair really is, but most of the time it seems to me that it's blonde or yellow. So this bike became known to me as Aliana Lohan. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are some of my bikes and the names and how I came up with those names. Maybe not the most technical topic in the world, but the naming the bikes is certainly something that I enjoy. Once again, if you don't mind, share with me the names of your bikes and how you came up with them. I'd love to read about it. I hope I've given you something to think about, and I'll see you guys at the top.